A behind-the-scenes look at how games are made and the people who make them. This is Game Dev Deconstructed. Hello and welcome to Game Dev Deconstructed. I'm your host, Nick Culbertson, and today I'm talking with Storm Hughes. Storm works out of the same co-working space as me in Dallas, and we spent hours talking about making games, branding, marketing, you name it. He is close to completing his first major Steam release, Really Good Battle, or RGB for short. It's an arena-based couch co-op game with interesting gravity. In this conversation we talk about Twitter, Let's Plays, rapid prototyping, and a whole lot more. We don't always agree on topics, but his point of view helps me to see things from a different perspective. So, without further ado, I bring you a conversation with Storm Hughes. Welcome back to Game Dev Deconstructed. I'm here with Storm Hughes, creator of RGB and several other cool things that we're definitely going to go into. And this is more of a friend review, is what I'm calling it format. So, Storm, good morning. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Are you playing Candy Crush?
No, it's Twitter. I just turned off all my alarms so nobody
Let's talk about Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's your main avenue for trying to talk to people. You don't use Facebook or Instagram or any of that stuff.
No, I have a Facebook, but I made it when I was 13 when it first came out. Whoa.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I typically use Twitter because it's a lot easier for me. Yeah, you can just throw things into the wind and see if they stick or not.
Yeah, I think you feel that way, but I don't think everyone feels that way.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people want to come across a certain way on Twitter, and that sort of cripples them from actually using it as a medium. You've done a lot of different micro experiments with what works and what doesn't work with Twitter. And even, I think the day before yesterday, we were talking about it. And, okay, so here's my flaw with Twitter.
Right.
My way of using it originally was I just released an app. I'm now going to release a tweet about the app. Yeah. Marketing done.
Yeah,
I have done it.
Yeah, we did it. Yes.
Whereas now I have more of an approach of, and this is just as of a month ago, trying to automate certain tweets. That way my feed doesn't sit dead for months at a time.
Yeah.
And I don't feel guilty for not engaging or staying active on social media.
Right.
And then you said that you tried something similar at some point, but you found it's better to, organically, as you have the thought or you have a GIF or something, posting it at that moment.
Right.
What are some other experiments you've done or things you've learned in your time on trying to market your product?
I'm trying out some new formatting things that I think may help. I type out a tweet. And there's 3 different thoughts in this tweet, so I'll indent each one, and I'll add a little, greater than sign in the beginning, so it's kind of like an arrow in each thought. That way, when you scroll through my feed, my tweet is really 3 tweets next to each other, and so your brain doesn't just group that up as a paragraph and move on, because no one likes to read, which is weird because Twitter is all reading. Having short videos kind of works. Especially with RGB, the game I'm making, it matches take around 20 to 45 seconds, so I'm lucky that it fits that small time window. But it's sort of almost like a Vine situation, where very short, quick videos sell really well. But yeah, I used to automate for a while. I would look up what are high traffic times for Twitter. I forget when it was, but it was mid, late afternoon. People were either getting off work or looking to get off work, so around 1 to 4 is a really good time for Twitter. I would do what I do. I'd make games, I'd record GIFs, and then I'd type out tweets about, this is what I'm doing in a very structured way. I am getting this done, this is my thoughts, and then I'd put them on. And then I'd do that every day for 3 weeks. Every day at 1 to 4, 3 tweets would come out within that gap, and that didn't go so well. And then I just started 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. Here's the thing, and it's goofy, send. And then 10 minutes later, I fixed it kind of. I think my biggest Twitter bump was the grass apocalypse when I was making Super Pleasant Day. The thing was, I'd make grass that grew exponentially every frame. So I push play and it'd be 1 leaf, and then all of a sudden the screen would be covered in leaves. And I just GIF that, and it was just and it was a fun, I guess, moment when over an hour I'd GIF every 10 minutes this is how it's broken now, and this is how it's broken this time, and oh look, it's flowers that are doing it.
From a business perspective and trying to put yourself out there, gain new followers, I know there are like marketing hack things you can do, but that just makes your skin crawl a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like trying to follow 1,000 people and the hopes that some will follow you back, and then
you unfollow them.
Or and at the same time, it's weird because as an individual using it, you know, you'll write something and you're like, okay, I feel like I need to bump this marketing-wise somehow, so I'll put in hashtag game dev, hashtag indie game.
Yeah.
And then a few minutes later, you got 2 likes from a bot.
Yeah, right? Well, and yeah, but there's definitely this weird dichotomy between being yourself and being something else, like looking at it business-wise, like, and I think that it is definitely a tool that you have to use. It's a platform and a tool, and it's also we're in a weird moment, and I guess internet culture where what sells the most is personality by far. Like that's if you just look at like Logan Paul, not to comment on what you think his YouTube is like, his personality sells all of it, right? His brand is all is just him. And that's what sells for sure. We're so distant from each other already. This is a theory I have. But because we're already putting on these personas and these masks and portraying our lives to be certain ways, that when we find personality, it's like really almost addictive, because it's like, this guy's himself. Whoa, that's weird. No one's themselves anymore. Even though that's not really, I don't believe that's really what he is. I think he's just like hyper himself for the camera. And so we're in this weird moment where, like, yes, being yourself has the possibility of selling really well, but also you have to systemize it and game and feed the algorithm what it wants in a way, right? Like, you have to use all these hashtags and all these strategies to sell yourself, but also what sells the most is you, but not by it's this weird like knot of what do I do?
You can't see this, but Storm basically said that all with his hands. It looks like you're making a clay ball.
Yeah, I'm very emotive. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people think that you need to have a personal Twitter, but you also need to have a brand Twitter for your company.
I never see brand Twitters. I follow Rami Ishmael. I follow JW. They are Vlambeer. I follow Vlambeer. I follow Nuclear Throne. Nuclear Throne and Vlambeer Twitters never really tweet, and I never see them. You know, and I don't think a specific game Twitter works, and I don't think a specific studio Twitter works, but I think it's safe, right? Like, let's say a studio, like, let's say Polyknight's going to announce a thing. It is safer that Polyknight, the Twitter, announces something than Tyler announcing and Eric announcing and Steve announcing, and, you know, because there's so many of them. But when it's one person, you're really already the central hub of the information coming out of that studio. So I think you're just, like, wasting, not time, but you're spreading your audience really thin, because there's going to be some people who are like, oh, I really like this game, and I'll follow their studio, but they never tweet. And you never knew that, you know, Rami Ishmael, like, as a Twitter fiend, you know?
Right. And I do wonder, though, if that's different for gamers. You know, I think certainly as someone who's interested in the process and is a game developer yourself, you're going to be more likely to follow Rami, whereas maybe someone who played Ridiculous Fishing, they want to follow Vlambeer and just see what all they're up to and what game they're making next.
Yeah, that is definitely a huge, like, discussion point inside my own head right now, which is I want to make a game and I need money, so I want to Patreon it or some sort of crowdfunding thing. I also want to output content, but I don't know if my audience will be game developers or people who play indie games, because those are very big differences. And then also stuff like, if you ever watch like Mark Brown's Game Maker's Toolkit, like, is his audience game developers or game... It's a bunch of video essays about game design. Is that like for devs or for gamers who have interest in dev? Like, I'm just stuck in it. Like, I always wonder, like, is game dev Twitter a jerk of developers, or is it like actual people interested in game developers, or is it just we're interested in each other? Because we have our own subculture to a degree, right? Rami Ishmael, I would assume, is to some degree an indie game celebrity with huge quotes around that, because he's well known, he has given lots of talks, and you know, people look up to him. But if you go on the street and ask anybody about Rami Ishmael, they will have no idea what you're talking about.
Right, but if you look at someone like Who's Team Meatboy?
Team Meat, Edmund McMillan.
Yeah, if you look at his Twitter, it seems like the people that are following him are not necessarily game developers.
That's actually a good point and super interesting, right? Like, okay, yeah, that's a good point. I feel like a lot of people who are his fans are people who are fans of his games and follow him because they like his game. And that's back to the personality, because his games just spew personality everywhere. They have his stamp all over them. They're very different than most of the games, but he's not lucky. He's very smart to basically, his style is like mid-2000s Flash games, because that's what he was doing, and he made a lot of the popular mid-2000s and late 2000s Flash games. And so now when he's making games, people are nostalgic for their teenagehood, because I played Meatboy when I was 10, and now it's a game.
Right. So, true or false, being a gamer helps you make better games?
Yeah, I think that's true, but it depends on from where you're making them. I think at a certain level, when you're making, if you're a developer on Call of Duty and you're here programming gun physics, you don't need to be a gamer to program bullet physics. You're just programming things falling. That's just physics. You don't really need reference. But if you're designing games, you definitely need game design. You need gameplay reference to design games. I think it works with like animation too. Like if you're animating a fighting game, you need to be able to move like a fighting game, so that when you really understand when you throw a punch, where should my shoulder be and what position should it be in for a side punch, right? So with that knowledge of how that motion works, you can then use that when you animate. You know, like, oh, the shoulder rotates over when I throw a punch. So I think no matter what you're making, you should have some reference. But that doesn't mean that, like, if you're programming a fighting game, you need to know how to fight. Like, no, because you're just programming, like, arcs and jumps and motion and, like, an animation system. But if you're designing a fighting game, you should have played fighting games. That way you get it.
Right, yeah. I heard someone talking about playing games gives you an encyclopedic knowledge of all these different things. That way you can, you go in, and if I'm going to make a puzzle game, I have all these mechanics of other puzzle games that I've played. And you're not trying to, intentionally rip off one of those things,
right,
but you just have more of a holistic understanding of it. That being said, I don't play a lot of games these days. I need to play more.
There's so many, I'm getting a list together of a bunch of things people say that sound good. The last game I played essentially was Hyper Light Drifter. Other than that, I've been fiddling with BioShock because my girlfriend loves BioShock, and so I'm trying to get reference for what that is. But yeah, it was I played Hyper Light Drifter last year. The year before that was Fallout 4. And then the year before that was I don't know. That was it. I just play a lot of New Vegas, and that's.
Well, it's weird that you say you don't play games, because I would have thought of you as more of a gamer, especially because you got the Switch.
Yeah.
Here at the co-working space we're at.
I did.
You've set up Super Smash Brothers.
Right.
So you've been playing Zelda. I'm sure you've been playing Mario Odyssey.
I have played Mario Odyssey, yeah. So the Switch is a godsend, because it lets you fit game time into any 15-minute section you can find with no setup. So I can I'll play Mario Odyssey while I'm waiting 30 minutes. So that's how I beat Mario Odyssey, beat in huge quotes. I got to the first ending just by fitting it into anywhere I could find. But yeah, I think maybe my memory is a bit tarnished because I haven't played games recently. I haven't been playing a lot. Or because I remember playing video games so heavily when I was a teenager that now the amount that I play is a tenth. And that still might be a lot for someone like you who has a child and who has a much more demand to work. I haven't played much Melee. And this year, since I haven't played a lot of Melee. I stopped in June. No, I played a lot in June of last year, and then I used my knowledge of my internal memory of the game to make RGB's movement system a lot more fluid, and then after that I stopped. Because I got what I needed out of it, essentially.
There was a period of time where I had been playing the pixel art games, and I played the PlayStation games. Then there was a big break of time where I didn't play anything.
Yeah.
And then I just got Call of Duty. And I don't know, it's probably like Modern War or something.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where before I did any of the campaign, I just jumped into the multiplayer thing.
Yeah.
And it felt like real life. I think it probably felt like the way people felt when the first time they played Atari or something. You know,
what?
It was transformative. It was awesome. So I don't play games as much now. As you mentioned, like I have a daughter, so my time constraints are more crunched. But when I'm working, I tend to do a lot of watching Let's Plays. I will watch that on, have it on the side while I'm working through stuff. And I feel like that helps contributing to that understanding mechanics and getting knowledge of games. But what do you think about Let's Play games? Do you think it takes away from sales of games? Do you think it draws more traffic?
Oh, that is a huge topic that I know a lot of. It was one of those, I brought it up with a friend of mine. They're not haters on Let's Plays, they just dislike the medium, and I totally understand their point of view. RGB is, by nature of playing it, you're being transformative, if that makes any sense, right? If you record yourself playing RGB, the things you do belong to you because I have made a toy box and you have played with my toys. But when you play Inner Space and you record yourself playing that, not much is transformative. You spend a lot of time on this, and experiencing it once kind of it's like watching a movie, essentially. Like, you're not going to live stream yourself watching a movie. That's copyright infringement, right? So why is streaming yourself playing a video game that is heavy narrative based and very like once you see it you get it? It's weird how like for me with my games, I'm like I would never take revenue from a Let's Player for RGB, right? Like I would never take. If someone made a combo video of them like just beating some people up, like I'm not going to take money from that because they did the work. And I'm very like I would never. That doesn't make any sense to me. But the way Tyler framed it, it's like you wouldn't stream yourself watching a movie, making $100,000 off that video, and then just take all the money and run, right? Like that's first off, that's illegal. They don't.
Right. And the current law, and it is a gray area, that doesn't fall under fair use, me watching the video. Whereas, exactly like you said, someone's experience of playing that game, it's almost like a commentary on that piece, which makes it a derivative work at that point.
Right. But yeah, and that's where, like, how transformative are they being? Are they just, like, watching the game and then going every 5 seconds? Like, that's weird.
Right.
Or
I mean, I've seen videos where it's literally a playthrough and there's no voiceover or anything. Someone just has played through like a Telltale game. Yeah. And I mean, in those cases, so if you had a crystal ball, and this is me just thinking, like in the music industry, copyright law, they've been trying to hunt down people, you know, like. And they haven't been totally successful with it. If I want to listen to an album right now, I'd go type it into YouTube, even if I own the album, and I can listen to it on YouTube. Right. Someone takes that one down, someone else is going to put another one up. Where do you see Let's Plays going in the future in terms of, do you think it'll be more strict rules? Do you think monetization will go to the artists that created the games? Where do you see that?
That's a great question. I think that's the... I think it's just going to be like how music is, where you're not going to stop it. It's a very defeatist way to look at, like, well, they've built a culture around it already. We can't stop that. But with music, that's kind of like Chance the Rapper kind of accepted that. My music will be available whether or not I'm selling it. It'll be on the internet for free whether or not I'm going to sell it. So I'll just make my music free. The huge question is, how do I monetize? And I've been looking at like the industry and looking at what it takes to make it, and a lot of people barely make 10,000 sales, right? But let's say I make 10,000 sales, bust out the calculator that way I don't guess any of my money wrong, right? Okay, bust out the calculator. My game is $15, and I sell 10,000 sales, right? That's a good $150,000, right? Well, Steam gets 30%, so that leaves. So Steam gets $45,000 out of that, right? So that's already, I'm down to, like, people think game devs make money because they sell games and they make a lot of copies, but the amount of money that's actually in pocket gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, right? Like Cuphead's got $20 million, right? It's sold so much. It's like, well, Microsoft probably took 50 because they were the champions of that game, right? They really sold Cuphead very well. And then there's how many people really made it, and how many people, like, how much was the marketing budget, right? So, like, the developers in the end did not get $20 million. They'd be lucky to get 10. They probably didn't even get, they probably got 5, but then there's, like, how many people made the game, and so then $5 million becomes $200,000 per person, maybe, right? And people even argue that $200,000 is still good money, which it is for 2 years. For 3 years, how well is it for 4? You know, and so monetization and actually, like, how do I make money out of my stuff is super important and interesting, because we often thought about, like, oh, well, I make game and sell game, money happens to me, and we're good to go. And that, with the indie apocalypse, with quotes, I don't think will work. A lot of people went the advertising route, race to the bottom, just make it free, and then put ads in it, and that worked for, like, 5 people really, really well. That worked for a few hundred, but there are thousands of games. And so then there's, like, there are questions that I'm trying to ask, but I'm a person who rapidly prototypes, and you can't rapidly prototype monetization models because you need time to get, like, you need to invest in that, and then you need time to review and see if it worked or not. So I can't just, like, make a game and then make a lot of merch for that game and then sell the merch and then see how much that makes me. I can't just make it free but have merch. I can't make it free but also have a Patreon. I can't kickstart, like, I can't just do this because...
Why can't you do those things?
Because it takes time. Like, I need to make a game and then sell it, and then that takes a year, and then I need to see if that made me money or not, right? So I can't just, like, figure it out. I have to really, like... We're doing this. I'm putting my name to this. Like, if I make that and it flops, like, I'm the guy who flopped that thing.
No, but I mean, you're the guy who is going to be getting better with each thing that you release. So
very true.
Yeah. So I never truly feel like, it depends on how you frame it, but I don't ever feel like a game that you develop and you put your time into is a total flop if you can frame it as a win-win from the onset.
Oh yeah, but that only takes you so far. If you ever go on Netflix, there's a new documentary series called Abstract. I really enjoy so far. It's a bunch of documentary, like 1-hour documentaries about these designers and artists about what they make. There's ones about Tinker. What was his last name? The shoe designer from Nike. There's one guy who is an illustrator who does a lot of Time magazine covers. There's one lady who makes stage, like, she's a stage designer. There's another one. The only other guy I know is a guy who's an architect, right? And the first one was about the illustrator. And the end of his documentary was super, like... I forget what he said verbatim, but the thing he'd come across was, like, motivations for kids. Like, he's a professional. Like, it's cute that you want to be inspired, but it's time to work. You know, like, it's great that we get to draw for a living, but... you need to work under pressure and get things done. You need, like, I get that you... which I like. Like, there's a lot of people who are like, well, I need to be in the right zone. And it's like, well, then you're not going to make money, right? Like, it's time... yes, this is a creative medium, and you are so blessed to actually make what we want. But at the same time, it's time to make money. You have to be a serious adult. So there's that. I want to rapidly prototype, but it's also big boy time, and I have to pay rent. So I can't just throw all my money away. I can't, I have to take it seriously to a degree.
The idea with the rapid prototypes, that's something that I noticed you've done a great job with, since, I mean, it seems like you're constantly posting new games and new game prototypes that you're working on.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm excited with RGB to see what happens taking a full-scale game, releasing it on Steam, because you have a lot of games on itch already.
Yeah, a handful.
So I feel like this project's going to be different. And while I do think doing the rapid prototypes is great for building your skill base, finishing is hard.
Oh, and it makes it harder, too.
A lot of people are really championing the idea of starting something new. And I get really inspired about, we're going to start this. We're going to do something new. But when you're, like, 6 months deep into a project, or in some people that we know's case, 3 years into a project, it's really hard to, like, keep going and stay motivated and have your eye on the prize.
Rapid prototyping is a character flaw. I developed, like, a personal character flaw that I developed into a positive. 2018, I want to solve more problems in my life and be a better person, so I tried to like flip something. So 2017, I was like working on taking something that I used to think negatively about and make better. So I am the person who loads up Oblivion or any RPG with a skill tree, and instead of going down the fire path, I'll like take 2 out of fire, 1 out of ice, 3 out of like stone, 5 out of defense, and then by the mid game, I am this underpowered, weird, like I can't do anything really well, but I can do a little bit of it all. So there's this like weird lull and like difficulty in the middle of most games because I did pick one really good thing and then just like fireball everything because I want like diversity, right?
I think what you're describing is what you want to be is called a Tshape individual. So you want to be a jack of all trades but a master of one. Right. So that's the T-shape. The top is that you're good at all these skills. You're good at marketing, you're good at art, you're good at programming, but there's the one area that you really excel, and you can take off with that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We're with Storm Hughes. Yeah. Thank you for listening. All right, so we're back with Storm Hughes, and he was actually playing a video game during the break. So
yep, good old downwell.
Practicing what you preach. Either that or you've decided I don't play enough games and now I need to start playing them again.
Probably both. I'm probably going to go play Melee after this. I haven't played Melee in forever.
Okay, yeah. So before the break, we were getting in the weeds about a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
If you were to say you're a T-shape individual, where you have all these different skills of being able to prototype, being able to do the art, being able to market yourself, what is the leg that you're standing on?
That is where the depression kicks in, and I have no idea. Right? That's where the existential dread of like, well, what am I good at? Right? Like, if I were to build a team together, should I do the art? Or I'd rather have someone else do the art. Should I program it? I'd rather have somebody else program. And that's because I didn't spend time putting money into any of these trees yet. I've just kind of started from the beginning over and over and over again. So I will heavily, like, rapid prototyping is very important. I think everyone should try it. Like, make a game in an afternoon. Just try it. Like, it's 12 o'clock. You're done at 4. What can you do in 4 hours? Just to see. But there is there is the danger of getting really good and really caught up with making the beginning of a game that you never actually finish something or develop the skills necessary to actually finish something. Right? Like, I don't know how to make menus.
I think habits are like muscles, and by starting a whole lot of projects, you're getting good at starting a lot of projects, but what you're not seeing is you're not getting good at finishing projects.
Right, which is why RGB took 2 months longer than it should have, mostly because of fatigue. Like, I know what I had to do. I have a programmer, paying her, like, so we're doing it. But then I would make a game for a week or make a game. Like, I should be working on the collision bug, but I have an arcade game. So there's definitely that disciplinary, like, it's time to stop and work and finish. So I don't know if I have a proficiency in anything yet, but I've been talking to a lot of developers about being a designer first, everything else later. But I hate the term idea guy because that's not an existent, like, that's not a thing, right? But there is definitely people, when they look at games, they look at games as 2 things. There's programming and there's artwork. That's a video game. You got to get a programmer and an artist, and bada bing, bada boom, you got a game. To a degree, is kind of true. Then you go, well, no, I've made video games before, and I know that you need a programmer, a game designer, and an artist. The designer will know the concept, will know how to, like, sell the game, like, do all the level design and get it. It's like, yeah, you're getting there. There's the programmer, there's the artist, there's the visual artist, which is actually a different thing than the artist, right? Like, you can make the artwork, but how are you going to make it look? Like, how are you going to shade it? Like, there's the aesthetic appeal, there's the concept artist, right? Like, a concept and the artist are 2 different things, and it's really, like, and then you have the level designer, which is really different than the actual, like, game designer, and then you have marketing, which is as important as programming. Like, people go, well, no, because if you don't have a marketer, you can still make the game. It's like, true, but you're not going to sell it, and you're going to run out of money. So marketing, to me, should be as important as design, as important as art, as important as aesthetics, as important as programming. And so that when you break down games, we have this, like, ridiculous, like, hobby task, like, medium that is 15 other mediums. And when you need to make them, where do you fit in, right?
Well, I mean, and that's something else you see with artists, like programmer art. Sometimes because we do have that pixel art aesthetic, programmer art can fit that need, you know. But as someone who has done programmer art, whenever you actually hire an artist, you realize, oh, you know what? I'm not an artist.
Also, that was a lot faster and came out a lot better.
Yeah. And that also has to do, I think a lot of people start game development as being independent and doing it by themselves.
Right.
And whenever you're creating a product by yourself, you create a product that only you can make. And on one hand, that sounds good because it's your vision. But at the same time, it's limited to only your vision.
Right.
You're not bringing someone else's influence to the project. Whenever I was making a game before and I worked with an artist, the art that I got started to have me to make decisions on how I wanted to design the game.
Right.
And it really expanded it. And I'm a real advocate for getting other people's feedback early in a project, and that's a way where it's not like designing by committee, but you are getting input that ultimately goes into making your game better.
Right.
But so the ultimate thing you want is you want to have a successful game, right?
Right.
But you also want to retain ownership of that game, you know?
That is a huge... Yeah, I will agree to that.
But as soon as you start working with someone else, depending on how you structure your arrangement, just say it's an equal partnership, you've just said goodbye to 50% of the earnings you would potentially make. But
I don't even think it's about income. I think it's about like the clout about it. Like the more names on, like, I'm making the credits for RGB. There are 4 names on the credits. There's me, art design, additional programming. There's Kate Sander. She is programmed a lot of the back end, made it functional essentially. And there's Pixel Noise, which is 2 people. 4 people made the game, right? That feels nice to me. It's very readable. Like, but if there were 4 more people, like I'd feel like my personal suffering that went into the game is less important now, because when someone like I feel like I wouldn't. This is me talking, like being like an armchair psychologist to myself. I feel like I wouldn't get the recognition I deserve for the amount of effort and like suffering in quotes I put into it, right? So I feel like I'm drowned out by the other people on the project. So there are people that like it happened to me on Blobby. I was making a game with a studio in quotes online. Really, it was me, 2 programmers. We made the game, right? Like, I designed it, did all the artwork, I fiddled with Unity a bunch, and they programmed all the scripts. But when it came time to do the credits, the studio head, in huge quotes, like, their name was first, right? Like, all these other people who work in other games at the quote studio, their names were on there too. And I'm like, who are these people, and why are your names first, right? Like, no, I made this game. Me and these 2 dudes made this game. Like, we put in effort, we put in time. I learned production. I did the Trello page. I made dates, and we did it. We got it out before August 5th. And who made this game? These guys. It's like, who are these people? Like, I did it, right? Like, pointing at the wall.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I understand the acknowledgement aspect of it. Because you want it to be a project that you put out. I
made, right? Like, there's that identity part where if you add too many people, you feel like it's no longer you and yours. And
right. Okay.
I get it.
But I do want to rewind a little bit to something that you said about suffering. And that's part of what I wanted to explore with this podcast in general is about, I know you don't have to suffer to make great art.
Right.
But so many people suffer doing it. You've suffered through the project you're doing now. I've suffered, in quotations again, through the projects I've done. I know there's got to be another way. I don't think that you have to be, locking yourself in a dungeon and pushing yourself to the point of not enjoying life to create something.
One, I think we're hyperbolists. I think after the fact, when we look back at how we felt, we're very dramatic and over the top with our language. Like the word suffering. I don't think if you know what suffering is, I don't think I suffered.
I think people, people were without electricity in Puerto Rico for over a month.
That's pretty
Those
suffering.
people are suffering.
Yeah. So we didn't suffer through making games, but it was definitely a hardship of some kind. I think half of it is the environment we're making games in. There are so many games being made right now by so many people. There is not that much money. Gamers are getting fatigued. Like, we can make them buy our games, but they're not going to play it because they have 20 other games they have to play, right? The market's saturated. On top of that, when I started making games, Indie Game the movie was on Netflix. I was 16, so I saw that these people, if they put everything they have into something, if they love it dearly, and like they go on, they put their name and their life's, essentially their life's work and their money on the line, and they go, this is the game. I'm putting everything I have into it. All my money, all my time, all my emotional output. Not all of it, I still have a little bit for, other people. But if I put everything I have into something, it will succeed, is what I learned from watching that movie. It's just going to succeed. That's how that works. But also, you will feel so good when it succeeds because you put everything it's like gambling. Like, it's the same psychology that goes into clickbait, right? If I gamble all my everything into something and it works out really well for me, imagine how good you'd feel. Like, not even like you put in all your life's money and you made back $2 million. Like, that's one thing. But imagine if you put everything on the line and now you're this rock star of indie developer. And it's like, that would be so satisfying. That's why we suffer, right? Because people will often say, like, I don't care what other people think. Like, that's what you say. But deep down, like, the reason you're making a game is so other people will play it. That's why. I know a lot of developers who talk about, like, I don't care what gamers think of my stuff. I don't make it for them, but it's for sale for $10 if they want to buy it.
Yeah, we won't go down that rabbit hole just now, but that is a whole other thing that I had asked people before what they do. I guess we are going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, whoops.
I'd asked people before about how they handle bad reviews, and some people had said, and I think this is probably the best approach, is, you take it on the chin, you can feel your feelings for a moment, but then ultimately you think, okay, put it through a filter. Does this person not know what they're talking about? Or does this person have a point, and can I actually address and upgrade this experience I've made to better suit that?
Yeah, no, you definitely have to categorize them as someone in or out of your audience, which is why it's important to know your audience or know what the intended audience is supposed to be. And then if someone makes a comment, you can go, okay, well, that's invalid. Have a nice day. It's important to be dismissive sometimes, not to their face, like, haha, I'm being dismissive, but just to look at it and go, okay, you don't know what you're talking about, moving on.
Well, it's also tricky with reviews because, you create a game, you release it into the wild, a lot of times the only feedback you have on it is through the reviews. Yeah. And depending on how people came about your product, they may or may not be your intended audience anyways.
Right.
So say your game is going on Steam, say you have it during a time on Steam that you put it out for free or something. Right. Well, people are going to download it not because they're drawn to the concept of your game, they're getting it because it's free. These people aren't really your audience. They're people who are just opportunists that walk by, and a lot of them are probably not gonna gel with them because it wasn't made for them,
right?
But the reason I bring up the review thing is some people had replied on that thread saying, I really don't care what people think of my game. So I do think that's a part of it, and it's like, if you don't care what people are thinking about your game, then why are you trying to make experiences that resonate with people?
Exactly. It's definitely a psychological lie to themselves to try to convince themselves they don't care. So I did in high school. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care. Of course I cared. I'm 12, I'm 13, 14.
Right.
All you know are these 400 people. That's your whole life. Of course you want them to like you. It's human nature. It's tribalism, right? But you also do things to convince yourself that you don't care. Like this is the hoodie I wore in high school. Same hoodie. It's got rips and everything, right? I like this hoodie still. I'm gonna replace it soon because it's getting old. But I'd wear it all the time, and even when it got ripped, I don't care. This is how I am. I wouldn't cut my hair. I would do all these things to try to convince myself that I didn't care, and it made me worse off for it. And so now I know, I went through that, and now I know people are full of shit when they say they don't care. Because it's like you're making an interactive media. The only way a game works is if somebody plays it, right? That's the only way. You can make a game without input, but then you're not really, it's like a video or like programmatic art, right? A game works when someone touches it and interacts with it. Whether or not that's fun that doesn't define a game. Like Proteus, just walking around and viewing a landscape and there's nice music, that's a game. It's interactive. It's all it needs to be a game. but you're making it. You're not making it for somebody else, but the point of making it is that somebody else experiences it as well.
Okay, and that brings me to another question and big topic. But you know what? I'm going to wrap this for now.
Okay.
I really appreciate you spending the time to come here and talk about game development with us. We talked a lot about games, too.
Yeah, we went around a little everywhere.
So where can people find you online?
We talked about it at the beginning. I'm I'm a Twitter fiend. I use Twitter a lot. My handle is @BoxheadPixelArt, because that's my studio name, I guess. Boxhead Games.
I guess.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things I just kind of found. It found me.
Right.
Now I'm doing it.
That's great.
But yeah, you can also play some of my games on itch.io/boxheadgames. I have a few prototypes up there. RGB is up there as well, coming out February sometime. And I haven't quite picked a date, but it's pretty close to being very done. So look out for that on itch.io and Steam, coming here pretty soon, February 2018.
Awesome. Yeah, and I would love to have you back for part 2. You know, we're in the same neighborhood, so
Yep.
we will definitely continue and have Storm back. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. I agree. We will do that.
Awesome. All right. For show notes and links mentioned in the podcast, visit GameDevDeconstructed.com. Support the podcast by following us on Facebook and Twitter, and by rating and subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you stream the show. That's all for this episode, and I hope to see you all next time.